Good evening, Brother Rolando. I really appreciate you taking your time to talk to us. I know that it's pretty late there in Bolivia. We're talking as it's 9 p.m. on Thursday, November the 19th. So I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. It really means a lot.
Sí, sí, acá es buenas noches. Tenemos las
Yes, of course. Good evening to you. It's about, say, 21:09 hours. Good evening from Bolivia, specifically from Santa Cruz. I'd like to say hello to all of your listeners, viewers, brothers and sisters from everywhere in the world.
So, Brother Rolando, could you introduce yourself to the people that are going to be listening to this interview later? Who are you, and what do you do there in Bolivia for the labor movement?
Sí, soy el compañero Rolando Gorda, me dicen el compañero Flaco Gorda.
Of course, my name is Rolando Gorda. They called me Brother Flaco Gorda here in Santa Cruz. For about 4 hours ago, we gave a presentation to the Workers Congress of Santa Cruz, giving out this presentation by the elected members. The Congress is being held by the Presidium. That's why the executive committee that is headed right now, or in more general, concrete terms, we are the basic soldiers. Tomorrow, we're going to elect a new executive committee. We have about 56 sectors, many of those from the proletariat class, from the labor class. Those of us who want to direct the departmental politics of the region. I am work in the petroleum industry. I'm in the proletariat, and I work in the operations sector. And I've just finished my third round, and we're starting our next round to go to elections for new elected members.
And the position that you hold, what is the position that you hold in the organization there?
La posición es que acaba mi gestión de ser ejecutivo y vamos a volver a
My position is I am an executive manager, and we're going to go into re-elections called upon by the petroleum sector to dispute the executive committee of Santa Cruz. I anticipate with complete humility that the Congress that we're at right now is trending about 95% that they will give us the trust again to continue this labor movement through the Secretariat right now.
That's great. That's great. So, how did you get involved in the labor movement? How long have you been involved in the labor movement there in Bolivia, and what made you want to work, so heavily in the labor movement?
Bueno, yo vengo de Camiri. Fíjense que allá por los años de mi niñez.
Well, I'm from Camiri, around that area, around my childhood. It was a small town, mainly a petroleum-based economy, the petroleum capital of the country. There were, two choices. In my youth, when I was very young, very young, I lost my mother in a car accident. She was very young, and I was I had the responsibility of taking care of, five of my younger children. So I was forced to find a job. And in committee, to work in the petroleum industry, you had to play soccer really well, or you had to be the son of a petroleum worker. And in my case, I wasn't the son of a petroleum worker, but I still had the possibility of play soccer really well, and that opened the doors that 30 years ago I could access a job for the largest company in the country, which is Yacimientos Políferos Bolivianos Capitales. And obviously, you see lots of injustices through your childhood, and it starts to make you into a dreamer. And it was possible to fight these injustices through a union. And in Camiri, the strongest union was the petroleum union, and more or less that was our school. After high school, we came to Santa Cruz, and well, we've been working in this movement for 30 years, working in this sector. But also, I've been working for about 15 years as an organizer, as a leader, as a delegate, from intermediary leader. I've been a subsecretary of my union, the largest union in the country, and I've had the opportunity to be the first petroleum worker in the labor movement in Santa Cruz that occupies the executive position of the workers' movement. We have a specific requirement that says that in order to be an executive of the Union of Santa Cruz, normally this person is an industrial worker that occupies the position, but well, we had this chance to make it where we are now, and we're finishing up our third term. And with the blessings of God and with the trust of brothers and sisters of Santa Cruz, I think we can be reelected. And this had also allowed me to be a candidate for the governorship of Santa Cruz, using socialism as my instrument. But obviously, first and foremost, it's my union militancy is primary in my function.
So you were a candidate for the MAS then in Santa Cruz to the parliament, right? I didn't realize that.
Sí, la anterior gestión,
Yes, the last term, because of a political document that comes out of the Workers' Congress throughout the whole country, through the Central Workers Group of Bolivia, they made a decision so that the workers would help support the change of the President Evo Morales. Through that election, through that process, we were candidates to be postulated through the socialist movement, but also it was really strongly supported by the workers of this area.
So it sounds like, and solidarity from Alabama, brother. My name is David. You said that you got your start as a soccer player in the industry, which
Yeah, that's right.
coincidentally happens in America a lot. If you're a very good football player, you don't have a hard time finding a job in the industry. but it sounds like you've also built the trust of your workers with 95% support. So I would like to congratulate you for that and tell you great work there because that's as important as anything that you do. The question would be how are the workers feeling now with the new government coming into place? And it sounds like your elections for the executive committee or the executive council is coming up. Are the workers, the proletariat on the ground feeling excited about this new era?
Liliana, entiendo. A ver, antes de entrar a, a responderte, también les puedo
Well, let me
decir
see.
que el
Before
año pasado en las elecciones de octubre
before I can respond the question,
del golpe que hubo,
I also can say
también fuimos
that last
candidatos a
year,
varios senadores
during the October
del
elections,
departamento de Santa Cruz.
before the coup,
Salimos electos
I
nosotros
was also
como segundo
candidate
senador del
to second
departamento
senator for the Department of Santa
de
Cruz.
senadores. Y
We were
obviamente el presidente
elected
en ese
as
momento
second
decía
senator
que el compañero Flaco Borda no era el candidato
with the help of my worker brothers and sisters. And obviously, the president at that moment said that
se vino
uh,
el,
he said that I
el
wasn't just a
golpe el año
candidate
pasado,
of Santa
no
Cruz.
pudimos asumir la
I said I was a
senaduría,
candidate for the whole country that was represented the workers. Because of the coup,
de Santa
we could
Cruz.
not assume the Senate position. It was we were very persecuted.
Eduardo en el monte como
Uh,
27 días
I think I was
que pasé
the most persecuted head here at Santa Cruz. We had to hide in the woods for about 27 days
de una presión
until
y de
this
un acompañamiento, pero además
this
para
climate and this pressure could
entonces
pass,
han sido momentos bien
and
difíciles.
threats to my life, to protect my life.
El año pasado hay que dejar
So
constancia
it's
de que no
been a
hubo
difficult time.
fraude, lo que hubo fue un
Uh,
golpe
Last
apalancado,
year,
auspiciado por la
we
OEA
have to remember as
internacional.
well,
Obviamente
there
el
was
fascismo, porque aquí en
no
Santa
fraud.
Cruz
It was a
ustedes deben
coup.
conocer de que
Uh,
siempre se
it
impone
was sponsored by the OEA and by Mr. Amado and fascism, because in Santa Cruz you have to know that the powerful people always want to impose their will. And obviously, the workers, the proletariat class, to social organizations, they always look down upon us. So it's a pretty complicated department. We can't forget as well in 2008 when the movements for separatism also uh, sponsored by the transnationals, by people in power. Obviously, a very defined strategy. They had a same kind of coup of last year to steal our natural resources, specifically our lithium. I think that's what's provoked the coup, but thankfully, the consciousness of the people have imposed themselves through the vote. We're not the culture of fighting or whatnot. We're the culture of the vote. We are brothers and sisters that historically, workers, proletariats, our brothers and sisters, our indigenous brothers and sisters have given their lives, have given their blood, and with their support, we've recovered democracy. So, also with today, are the opportunity because of the 18th of October, the consciousness of the people through a general indefinite strike decreed by the Central Labor Force, our young people, our indigenous people, our workers, we were able to recover our democracy with more than 55% in favor. So today we have to play a role. We have a president that's been a minister, that accompanied President Evo for almost 14 years, when we will not forget, especially the working class, that were we were way, way over budget, and that inflation, wild inflation, and through nationalization, it was through the recuperation of our nationalization of our natural resources, our economy stabilizes, and we had the greatest growth in recent times. It was about 4.5% of growth, annual growth a year of the economy, and that allowed our president Evo to build roads, hospitals, other types of transportation, other types of education. It allowed to remove 3 million people from extreme poverty and insert them into the middle class. So the workers and the Bolivian people in particular, the proletariat class, we are sure that with President Lucho Arce and David Chacuanca, we are going to recover the economy. But as well, when the coup happened last year, we didn't have on our minds the idea of the pandemic. We had 21 days of stoppages, of blockages, and we had to not, that our economy just took a nosedive. We've been robbed and sacked, and the pandemic arrived, and it was just a coup de grace. But it was very opportunistic for the fascists, for the extreme right, those that have been living off the state. A candidate like Camacho, for example, owes millions because of the more than 44 million Bolivianos. These are the kinds of things that have the subversive movement for the coup. But with the workers, we know that we have to work our base so that the economy will recover with the leadership of Brother Lucho Arce, without forgetting our legitimate demands are to reivindicate our workers that have been very vulnerable, and with the the memory that every 15 minutes there was a worker on the streets, or people were thrown out into the streets. And that's what happened during the transitional coup government happened. And now the government that emerges from the people, from the working class, we have the commitment to recover the economy, to consolidate the future of our children and our new generations.
That's powerful.
You mentioned that y'all went on a general strike. If not once, I think multiple times. I've read about multiple different strikes happening in Bolivia under the coup government, and I'm interested, as you know, I'm not sure how much Sister Ovana has told you about David and myself, but both of us are unionists here in the United States, in Alabama. I'm a rank and file member of my union and an officer in our labor federation. David is the president of his local union. And here, the culture around strikes is, if I understand it right, it's a lot more, we're a lot more timid here in the United States. Just going a single workplace going on strike in the United States is quite a big deal. And I'm reading about multiple general strikes happening in Bolivia during the past year. Can you talk to us about the organizing that goes into those general strikes, and what it takes for people to be able to, lay their lives and livelihoods on the line for better working conditions, and in this case, for a democracy in multiple workplaces in the same area. That's just, it just doesn't really happen in the United States. So I'm really interested.
Es, para mí es una satisfacción saber que ustedes
It's
son
for
dirigentes,
me,
son
there's a great
representantes
satisfaction to know that you
políticos,
are
pero la historia del movimiento
representatives
obrero
of
sindical boliviano
unions in the United States,
es
but
realmente
the history
un
of
orgullo para
the
nosotros los
Bolivian
bolivianos.
union labor movement
Fíjense que
is
antes de la
truly
fundación de nuestro
a
sindicato, que
pride
era
for
nuestra
us
central obrera
workers.
boliviana, que es el 17 de
Uh,
abril de 1958,
Before the
y he
foundation
escuchado
of Central Obrera Boliviana, which
un
is
movimiento
17th of April of
sindical
1951,
de trabajadores
you may have
obreros
heard
de la
of
sector de
a
la
movement,
agropecuaria del movimiento obrero
a
sindical
labor
boliviano.
movement of mining
Podemos
workers that for
decir
us
que
is
los
the
trabajadores
vanguard
cuentan
of the labor movement in Bolivia
de trabajadores
in
obreros del país,
1944.
donde
These folks, the Federation of Mining
en
Workers
sus
was
estatutos
formed
de la
where,
fundación contemplaba
where
la independencia
in their statutes
sindical.
of
Esto
its
quería
founding,
decir que los trabajadores
they
no podíamos meter
thought
mano.
about the
Sin
independence
embargo,
from politics.
después de
This
2 años
meant that us
nuestra
workers couldn't
compañera
get involved in
se daba
politics.
cuenta que no era el camino
Without a
correcto.
doubt, after 2 years,
Entonces se convoca a una
our
convención
mining brothers and sisters
para
realized that it wasn't the
definir
right
una nueva
path.
estrategia.
So
Y ahí sale
they had a general
una
congress
tesis
to
política del
define a
Culacayo,
new strategy,
donde se
and
trazan
from
las
there,
líneas a seguir para llegar al
a
poder.
political
A
thesis from
partir de ahí es
Culacayo,
que los
where
trabajadores,
they drew the line to
especialmente
follow
obreros
to be in power.
fraccionarios, con una
From
buena
there, the
mayoría de los
workers,
compañeros mineros,
especially
pues luego viene la
proletariat
fundación de la
workers,
Central Obrera Boliviana,
with the vanguard of the
encabezado
mining
por
workers,
un legendario dirigente
and after
sindical
there,
obrero
the
que a la
foundation of the
fecha
Central Obrera Boliviana,
ustedes han de haber
led
podido
by legendary
escuchar,
worker miner Don
y
Juan
su
Lechino
condición
Oquendo.
también de
Those of you,
ejecutivo,
you might have heard of,
máximo ejecutivo nacional de los trabajadores bolivianos en
and
toda
he was executive
la
as
vieja
well,
presidencia del país.
maximum executive of
Entonces, los
workers
trabajadores jugamos
of
nuestro
Bolivia. He
papel
was
en
vice
el sistema
president of the
político
country at one point.
de nuestro país.
So us
Nuestros
workers,
congresos, en
we
nuestros congresos se
have a
aprueban
role to play in
documentos
political
políticos.
action of our
Y en
country.
diferentes
Our
comisiones,
congresses, in our
en el tema
congresses, we
social
approve
puede haber el tema
political
de demandas
documents,
de
and in
viviendas,
different commissions,
el tema de la seguridad
in
social.
social issues,
Luego
for
dentro del ámbito
housing,
se discute y se
in
define
housing for
de
social
cómo deben
security,
estar organizados los
and
trabajadores y de
in
cómo
regular
tenemos que
manners we
mantener la
define
unidad del movimiento
how
obrero sindical
are we
ante
supposed
la
to be
crisis.
organized as workers, and how can
Lógicamente,
we
todo
maintain
tiene
unity
que
within
ver con
workers
algo de
so there will
realidad.
be no divisions. And as
Hay
far as politics,
una línea maestra, un
obviously,
documento político
I
que es
spoke
la
about
tesis de Placayo de
um,
1946.
there's a
A partir de
there's
ese
a
momento
political document
han
that
tratado
comes from
de
Gulakaya's
capturar la
thesis in
mente de los
1946.
trabajadores.
From that
Los
time,
trabajadores a la
they have
cabeza de la
tried to
central boliviana
change the
presentamos
mind, the ideology of the workers.
pliegos petitorios de demanda, pero
Workers
también
led by the
tratamos
Central Boliviana, we
de
present
realización del
political
aparato
documents,
legislativo del país.
but we
En
do
muchos de los casos,
uh,
el tema del
proposals
subsidio siempre va
and
acompañado de
demands
la
so
nacionalización
that the
para recuperar
country will
las
produce
mayores
certain things. We
características
demand,
que vienen a ser el
obviously,
soporte
under
de la
the
economía de nuestro
uh,
país. Obviamente
under the
eso en la
banner of
práctica
nationalization of
sucede
our
en contra
industries
de los
that are
trabajadores.
the support of our
Pero por otro
country.
lado viene
Obviously,
la línea maestra
following that socialist line,
de
following
cómo
the
debemos
worker line,
impuestos
and on
por
the
el
other
Fondo
hand,
Monetario
it's
Internacional,
the hard
viene
line of
también definiendo la
models
privatización de
imposed
las
by the
empresas
IMF, by the
estratégicas.
International Monetary
Entonces,
Fund.
ahí nos convertimos los
The
trabajadores
privatizations
no
are
solamente
the privatization of our
pagar
strategic
deudas
businesses and industries
extranjeras,
are. So there, the
realmente para los
workers
trabajadores,
ourselves,
para los obreros de nuestro país es
we
casi
not only
nuestra última
define our
esperanza,
rights.
porque en función a eso,
Obviously, our
en
country
el caso
is
del
first,
presidente Evo,
our natural
pues
resources, because
ha hecho grandes
with those, in the case of President Evo Morales, has done great works, building highways, new airports, educational centers, poly-functioning sports centers, and after nationalization, after the agenda of 2003, precisely because of a general strike, indefinite general strike, and a mobilization, we were able to knock down the nefarious Gonzalo Sanchez government. In fact, he came to the U.S. And even today, uh, there is impunity through the death of many brothers and sisters caused by that event. Well, in essence, the proletariat class, the worker class, we became in the sentinels, in the guardians of democracy, and then in the sentinels, the guardians of natural resources. And today, after nationalization, in which we were starting a period of privatization, of fascist privatization, in trying to break our strategic businesses, in trying to destroy the economy. And that is why the last indefinite strike decreed by the Central Boliviana, that's why we had a mobilization of blockages to force, firstly, not to defeat the government, but to force for once and forever they call elections, and that the people with sovereignty voluntarily could go to the polls and define the luck of the country through the vote. And that's what happened. And I think this is where the consciousness of the people, thanks to the mobilization, thanks to the Central Obrera Boliviana, and consolidating that victory, we have to fill the other role, the foundation of how to rebuild the economy, how to with the tutelage of the president and the vice president, and that's how we establish. We will continue to recuperate our benefits through the recuperation of the economy of the country, and we know that it will be possible. We're going to continue with our just demands. For example, I don't know how you're doing with your pensions in the United States, but the truth is that here we have a debt due. Our our friends who are retired or in age of retirement don't want to retire because the pension is poverty wages, hunger wages, and that's why we have to fight back. And that is why we want there to be a proposal from the workers, including from this Congress today in the Department of Santa Cruz, to elect a new executive committee that will have to be composed of uh, the people, and will have to discuss the government, which we are part of, to find solutions to our demands. And obviously, if we're not listened to, we're going to go to the streets to protest. We're part of this process, we're part of this government, but also we will not quit through to our just demands that we haven't seen a resolution to.
So it's it's very interesting that at the beginning you speak about the miners in Bolivia, because in America the labor movement, we also look back on history uh, for close to 200 years now, and the miners in America was the originators, the ones that begun the labor movement in America, and many, like in Bolivia, lost their lives, their families' lives fighting for to protect the rights of the workers and for a more democratic society. And so we as well look on the miners in America even today as a highly respected and regarded organization. Me and Jacob, as we talk, uh, many times in the past, we are in the U.S. The labor movement right now is approximately, as far as unionists go, approximately 8%, I believe, of the entire workers of America are unionists. So the labor movement is very weak, and it's our constant strive to build solidarity uh, with all the workers in America. But we look at Bolivia and see the power that you have built and that the unions have built, and we wonder there must be great communication between all of the unions and all of the workers, of course. And we have an overreaching federation, what we call the AFL, American Federation of Labor, and they bring all of the unions uh, together, but the communication is poor. So we never have a good solidarity between all of the labor movement. It's only between few unions, and we're wondering how Bolivia has been so successful, because we look and we see what you've done recently as a tremendous success, not just for the Bolivian people, but for the people all over the world to look on and say, we can do this as well. So we wonder what, where does your success come from? How are you generating such great success among the workers there? And how would you suggest? I understand maybe you don't have a full comprehension of what we're facing in America, but how some suggestions that you could make to help the labor movement, how we could help the labor movement here.
Tenemos asambleas de sindicatos permanentes.
Uh, we
Nosotros
have assemblies, union assemblies, permanent assemblies. We call these assemblies parliaments of workers, where we debate through criticism, through auto criticism, obviously internal criticism, and that rises up to debate analysis through the stages of the departmental unions of federations of confederations, and that is translated to a national debate that is called upon by the Central Boliviana through uh, through the that is the stage of the criticism, of auto criticism, and of proposals. And so obviously the main factor of unity is there, but there are obviously traitors. There are people that sell out, but they are very harshly punished. They are expunged. And we've understood ourselves that we cannot be submitted to political power and the power of capital. And that's where we dispute the political scene as workers. We value very much the leadership of the Workers' Party in Brazil, of Lula's party, that also emerges from the bases, from the factories, with this capacity, with this consciousness of class, of worker class, of labor class. And it's very impressive that he was able to raise about 30 million poor people into the middle class. And it was also said that his greatest sin was to bring a plate of food to the poor. The same thing here with Evo Morales. So Evo Morales is an affiliate of the Central Obrera Boliviana. He is a field worker, but he is affiliated through the Central Union of Bolivia. So Compañero Evo is born from the labor movement, and he is an indigenous agricultural worker, but he rises up through the affiliation to the labor movement. So that's where that consciousness to defend our national resources, because a product of that after the nationalization program is industrialization. And with this coup government, this was, taking steps back. I also wanted to say that our country, for example, is a very gaseous country, natural gas, and we had to, having that natural gas, we had to import this natural gas. We were importing it from Paraguay, and President Evo started to install liquid petroleum separation plants, and that became firstly in a way to fuel our internal consumption and an ability to export liquid petroleum to other countries. And that's when we as workers realize that we have to start in this scene of struggle, and above the internal differences that we had, there was always ways to find common ground, and that comes through the assemblies and the congresses, and there comes the strength of the labor movement, union labor movement of Santa Cruz and of Bolivia.
Something that you mentioned in a uh, in, in your answer a while back was that um, the labor movement in Bolivia not only sees itself as the protector of rights and wages in the workplace, in individual workplaces for individual workers, but also as a guardian of Bolivia's natural resources, also as a guardian of their community, also as a guardian of democracy in Bolivia. And I wanted to underscore that point and make sure that our brothers and sisters in the labor movement here heard that, because the labor movement in the United States, we have a history, and maybe the term today would be a social justice unionism. We can see that in some of the teacher strikes across the country, where what they were striking for was not only higher wages, but also it was also more nurses in schools for the children. It was better resources for the children. They were striking for their communities, and we can look to history for a guide there in the United States as well. With in the during FDR, lots of unions went on strike for programs in the New Deal to help their communities. And that's something that I think a lot of unions in the United States have got away from. We have kind of um, restricted the bounds of our solidarity to our shop floor, where what y'all have done in the broader movement of workers in Bolivia, I think, is very laudable. And I look at that for inspiration, and I hope that other people who are in the labor movement who listen to this also take inspiration from that and begin to see themselves as you know the as an organized uh, vehicle for the working class to make our community demands heard, not just working for ourselves.
No, seguro. Hay hay un modelo económico que tenemos que ha
Well, of
sido
course, yeah.
diseñado por
There's
precisamente
a
el actual presidente.
there's a model, economic model that we have that has been designed by precisely the current president, our friend Lucho, with Carlos Villegas, who was not with us, who was assessor to the main union. It's a redistributive model. in which the profits generated by companies, especially those owned by the government, does not stay in a few hands. It's a model that redistributes these profits where this so that this money can reach everybody through bonuses, and this generates great economic movement. And obviously, the private sector does not want to see become generalized. But in general, the private sector doesn't risk anything. That's why us workers have always pushed to have control of the nationalized strategic companies. And these companies are the ones that generate the possibility of injecting strong amounts of economic resources. For example, in the issue of industrialization, on investment in ammonia and a urea factory that we never thought of ever having, an investment of $950 million with our own resources generated by our nationalized company. In the case of the LP, liquid petroleum factory, $19 million were invested there, and this has made possible not to have to subsidize liquid petroleum, to convert ourselves to be flush with this product, but also to be able to export it. So when we're thinking about Evo's budget, we were thinking of $6.5 million in investment, and private investments were thinking about $2.5 million in investment. So this has never happened on the private side. And just think, the state does not live from the private enterprise. Private enterprise lives off the state. Through this generation of investment, this $1 million investment, the private companies had, had money to build roads and bridges and airports, education centers, factories, storage warehouses, industrialization. But this was done by using resources generated by state-owned companies. And that's why we close ranks when we defend the national strategic businesses, companies. That allows us that in 2005, when Evo wins the elections on 18th of December, we had a minimum wage of 240 bolivianos. This was a miserable minimum wage that was enough for nothing. And in comparison to the dollar, which was about 8.12 bolivianos to a dollar, but when President Evo, he made the economy a Bolivian economy. Instead of the dollar going up, the dollar went to 6.92. So the minimum wage gradually rose. And when the coup happened last year, us workers, we were winning 2018 bolivianos as a minimum wage. So in the 13 or 14 years of government of Presidente Evo's, us workers, we have had an increase of minimum wage of about 327%. It's an equivalent approximately 4.7% increase per year. In some instances, we've had opportunities to charge double, and that's thanks to a good economy, and it plays a role, as well as our minister, and under the leadership of the government at that moment, with our brother and leader, union leader, that is Evo Morales. That is why we always will be in line with defending our state-owned enterprises for the Bolivian people, and that is why we want to guarantee education through the state, our universities, our municipalities, our local governments. There are municipalities that receive truly miserable amounts of money, uh, product of co-participation, and after nationalization, that multiplied by 10, by 20, by 100. So we as workers understand perfectly what it is that we want out of the country, and through our petition process, we present agendas that can become government programs. We have the responsibility, in this instance, in this government, to lay the foundation so that our brother Lucho can function as a good leader. And this won't be possible without the leadership after one of our brothers that fled the country. I refer to my brother Evo Morales. He will always be the leader to establish the foundation of a governability so that with our leader Lucho, the president, and his vice president David, so that they can recover the economy and so that the rest of the country can grow.
Something that you mentioned that kind of stuck with me, because it's very similar to something that that David and I both say, which is that you said that you were a candidate for the MAS in elections in Santa Cruz, but that your primary loyalty was with the labor movement, that you were primarily involved and interested in seeing the success of the labor movement, that you kind of saw that as your, you know, your, uh, your first duty, so to speak. And David and I have a very similar perspective. Both of us, like I said, we're unionists. We've got we've thought about running for office, but we principally see the best way um, to working class, to achieving gains for the working class through the labor movement. So why is it that you have that perspective, as somebody who is involved in the mass, but also in your union? Why is it that you see the labor movement as kind of your the place where you primarily want to be involved with?
A ver, no, no, casi un poco no entendí bien, pero logré captar. Ah, la dirigencia sindical, yo tengo mucho respeto por los compañeros
I didn't quite get the thing you were saying, but I understand, I believe. I have a lot of respect for our brothers and sisters, academics, professionals, workers, and laborers in general. Respect them, but from universities, you leave with a title under your arm, an academic title, but you're missing something. They become professionals, but they really learn with us, with the workers, with the laborers, with the people. And the best university for us is, life itself. The best university is facing life day by day. The best university is being hungry in your childhood when you don't have enough to buy your daily bread. From there, we understand what solidarity of class is. That's our best university. And that's the university that Evo Morales has come from. And that's why he's the fruit of all these good benefits. That's why we're really proud to come from that university, to come from the best university. That's the unions, that's the streets. That's why, in general, maybe we don't have the language adequate to express what you know what the professional language in Spanish is, or good French, or good English, or what have you. But we speak our true language. that is expressed through solidarity. And solidarity for us goes above everything else. To tell you, for example, we have to give the shirt off our back to our brother. We do it. That's the principle of workers, of laborers of our country.
I, Jacob, unless you have any more questions, I don't. Did you have more?
I don't think so. I want, Brother Rolando, I really appreciate you taking your time. Do you have any kind of um, any closing thoughts for us or for our audience? You know, the folks that are going to be listening to this are actually primarily not going to be in the labor movement. We air on a radio station that goes out to the general public, and so. But of course, a lot of our listeners are in the labor movement. Do you have any closing thoughts, kind of a message from Bolivia, from the Bolivian workers movement that you wanted to make sure that that folks listening are going to hear?
Agradecerles a ustedes por tener la oportunidad de compartir sobre todo
I wanted to thank you for giving me the opportunity to share more than anything with brothers and sisters, unionists in the United States, and through you, the rest of the world. Just a message. Uh, we must learn to speak the same language amongst the workers, amongst brothers, amongst leaders, union leaders. We are not we're not enemies. We are not enemies of the rich. We just want the poor to stop being poor. And in our case, we keep fighting after recovering our democracy with this bitter taste in our mouth. We hope to continue to strengthen this unity that is always the factor in victory, in getting good results. We can have differences, but when push comes to shove, we have to close ranks to defend our rights, and in our case, to defend our own nation, to defend our strategic resources. That is the reason to have a better future for all Bolivians, for all for all people of Latin America, for all of the workers of the entire world. Uh, a hearty hello to everyone. May God bless you. May God illuminate the workers. And hopefully we always have the chance to communicate through this medium so that we can learn from each other. In life, we are apprentices, so we are grateful so much for the interview. I didn't know I was speaking with other labor unionists, and I'm happy to share our experiences that us workers have had here in our country.
If I could say one more thing before we go, Jacob, I just wanted to send my sincere thanks to Brother Rolando. And I speak for all of my membership whenever I say solidarity with all the workers in Brazil. Much love, and wishing you great success and safety above all as you go back to work and and fight the fight with hopefully with a great government behind you.
Yes, and I want to send my I believe that I can speak not only for my union but for our local labor federation when I send my solidarity to the people of Bolivia in their in their fight for democracy and for an economy for the many, not the few. So thank you so much, Brother Rolando.
Un abrazo.
All right. Have all right. Have a good night.